So it was kind of funny when I left the MTC. I thought I was like pretty good at Tagalog. Me and my companion, like, I don't know, I was also had like huge humility issues, but like me and my companion, like they would take us in different class and like teach us because we were like a little bit ahead of other people in our group. So we were both thinking that we're pretty good, and we get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the airport, and we fly into Hong Kong or LAX first, and into Hong Kong, and we were standing in line to get on the plane to go to the Philippines. And I was looking around. I'm like, are those Filipinos? Like, I don't really know. And they were speaking. I was like, oh, it must be Chinese. And I'm like, and I listened. I'm like, I understand that word. I'm like, they're speaking Tagalog. I'm like, I have no idea. 6 weeks and I had no idea what they were saying, like in real life. And so we get on the plane and we get to the Philippines. And on the way, I actually sat next to a Filipino man and we talked and stuff. Good thing he was good at English. But so we talked and a little bit about the gospel and things. We got in, and I just remember first how like destitute everything was. If that makes sense, just how, I don't know, it's like if I were to describe the Philippines, it'd just be like different than America. You know, we have a lot more opportunities here than they do there. And I was just like, wow, we've had it so good our whole life, you know? And it was kind of interesting seeing that that's basically how most of the world lives, is how they do. And so from there, I went to the mission home, and I met my mission president. He was great. He was like a big smile. I see him every like now and again because he lives by UVU, so I can go visit him and stuff. But so yeah, I saw him, and that was all good. And he gave us like the welcome to the Philippines thing, and like this is how the mission's gonna run. And I don't remember like any of that pretty much. And then my trainer showed up, and we didn't figure out who our trainers were until he like called us out and stuff. And it was funny because I was actually sitting next to him when they did it, and so he was great though. So I remember that just like I was really pumped to have him be my trainer, and that felt right. It was just like everything felt right, you know. Everything felt like this is how it's supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. And I remember my first day in the field when I actually got to my first area. I was Santa Rosa. It's actually called San Lorenzo. It's a little place next to a Enchanted Kingdom is what it's called. It's like a big, like roller coaster park. Not a big roller coaster park, big for the Philippines. And in my first day, I wake up, we're like doing our studies and stuff, and it just starts to rain. And it rained so bad that the alleys flooded and stuff, so we couldn't go out and work until like 8 o'clock at night. And so we finally went out and worked, and we visited the Mendoza family, was their name. It was the first family I ever visited. And yeah, it felt like unreal. And I remember the next day when I woke up in the morning, I was just like, oh, where am I? I'm like, this isn't America. And it was funny. It was like this like dread, but like this excitement that came over me. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? But no, it was amazing. It was like a dream, I'd say, a really good dream. So yeah, so in the San Pablo Mission, so we're south of the Cavite Mission, and we're north of, what is it, like Naga, I think? So we're right in that part where the most northern island starts connecting to the middle part of the Philippines. And so in our mission we have, how many zones is it? I believe it's 7 or 8 zones. I should know this, but it's been a bit. We have 2 islands, Marinduque, Mindoro, and then everything else is on the mainland. And in the mission there's no temple. They're actually building a temple that's pretty close to the mission in Alabang. They announced it last conference, or April of 2017 conference, so there's going to be a temple really close, so that may become an option for the missionaries to go to, which will be really cool. And that was actually really close to my first area. My first area of Santa Rosa was just south of Alabang. It was like 15 minutes away, so it was pretty close. But yeah, so the mission's really unique because it's the only mission in all of the northern Philippines that has 2 islands in it, in a mission. Manila Mission has an island, and so does, I think it's Quezon Mission, they have an island, but it's actually like part of our island. So we have 2 islands, Mindoro and Marinduque, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful. And when I actually served in both of them, and I served on Marinduque, that was the first island I served on. It was my 3rd area. And we actually had a house. My first house I lived in there was a beach house, pretty much. It was awesome. We were right on the wave wall, like that keeps the waves from coming in and stuff. Beautiful, just went to sleep listening to the waves every night. And On the islands, it's a bit different because if you're on the mainland, there's going to be cities. There's going to be places called SMs, which are like super malls, I guess. So there you could get all the stuff you need. You can actually get a lot of American things too because they import it. It's just more expensive. But everything, toilet paper, it's a thing, okay? People say it's not a thing, it's a thing. You can get toilet paper if you try. But no, and so out on the islands, it's different because there's no SMs, there's no big cities. Like on the whole island of Marinduque, there was only one store that we would like consider like a store. And it was like 2 cities away or 2 towns away. So we're on the island and you had to go to what's called the Palenque, which is just like the wet market, I guess is what you could call it, where they'd have like hog heads hanging up and depending if it was Tuesday, they'd have beef or whatever, depending on the day, and then like fresh fruits and vegetables, and so that's how you'd be getting your food while you're on the islands. And it's interesting too because on the different islands, actually in every area you'll go to, there'll be a different culture. There'll be a different culture. I mean, everything is basically Catholicism. And then there's different churches that have come off Catholicism. And there's actually a couple churches there's actually one church that pretty much came off of our church, which is interesting, back in the early 1900s. But yeah, so there'll be different churches, but basically the belief is Catholic while you're there. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how it is for religion. Pretty much everybody believes in Jesus Christ, unless you like run into a Muslim person or something, which they do have, which is interesting. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the basic belief is everybody knows who Jesus Christ is. Everybody knows who he is. It makes it really easy to approach them. And you'll have the people who, I guess it's like this probably in the whole world, you have the people who are really like love Jesus Christ. They're like, oh, he's my favorite, and actually every Filipino will probably say that. And then you'll have the people who actually know who Jesus Christ is. They'll be like, yeah, like, he did this, this, and this. He's my savior. He atoned for our sins. And then you have other people who are just like, yeah, man, Jesus Christ is great. And like, well, how do you feel like he'd be like with your actions right now? Like, I actually asked a guy that. And he's like, no, he'd come down and he'd be like, man, you're attractive. Like, good job. You keep doing you. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, so you know who he is? And he's like, nope. I'm like, cool. Or like he doesn't really know who he is, but he knew, But yeah, so that's kind of how like the church works there. And then it's really family organized, as in you'll have extended family living with their parents up until like their parents die. Because that's kind of how it works, is the oldest or the youngest child inherits the house. So I mean, if they don't ever move out, if none of the other siblings ever move out, then they all just live there together. And so you'll have all the family just living together until they have kids or until there's not enough room. And then they'll like build a house right next to that house and they'll just pretty much stay in family units. So depending on what cities you go to, pretty much everybody there will, like you'll say a last name and they'll be like, oh yeah, well, there's like literally 200 people with that last name in this little area. So it could be that one or that one. And then they have nicknames to go find them and stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of how it's it works, I guess, like the social unit and the religious part of it, and then that's kind of like the dynamic when it comes to like what you're going to be buying and what you're going to be seeing. If you're in the islands, you're going to be seeing pretty much a lot more huts, looking more destitute, and then you're using a wet market instead of going to actually like a store. But I mean, in my other areas, like when I was in Santa Rosa, when I was in Lucena, in San Pablo, they all had like supermarkets, and I mean like Santa Rosa, they had so many people and so many cars that when I come home, like my nose was like black from the exhaust. And then you go out to Marinduque and it's the complete opposite, So I mean, it's kind of like in San Pablo Mission has all of the different places, I guess you could say. Where to start? So the first thing I learned was actually about food, because I was really worried, to be honest, because I read the White Handbook, and it's all like, be sure if like food's in short supply and not to eat all the food, And so the way that Filipinos eat, okay, is you'll go into their house and they'll tell you to eat, right? If they'll be eating, they'll just tell you to eat. You don't even have to be in their house. So you'll be like, kain, which is like, come eat, And so if they do it once, it's just like being nice, right? They're just saying, oh, eat because we're eating, And so if they just say it once, just be like, no, like it's okay, like, no, it's fine. And if they tell you again, like, it's kind of up to you. Like if you're really hungry, go for it. Otherwise, just be like, no, it's okay. But if they keep insisting, and then it'd be polite to eat with them. And then usually what they do, if they know you're coming over, what they'll do is they'll keep food in the back for their family, and then they'll bring food up for you. So they'll kind of separate the food. But also you have to have your wits kind of, because sometimes they'll just bring out all the food. Because a lot of times they didn't eat with us. They would just like, we would eat and then they would eat separately after we were done. But yeah, so that's something I learned really quick, because I was actually really worried I was going to eat all their food. And my companion's like, no, man, it's okay. They have food in the back. And I was like, oh, sweet. Like, it's all good. And then we had a lot of people invite us to eat, but it's just like a polite thing to do, invite you to eat. So Filipinos, they'll give you the clothes off their back, literally the food's out of their mouths. There's actually a story. It's a lot funny in like a lot more funny in Tagalog, but it's like, so there's these two missionaries, and it's actually about missionaries, which is funny. We're like going up through the mountains, and they were hiking all day, and so it was like really tired and really hungry. Missionaries eat a lot of food, you know? And so they get to this house in the bukid, is what it's called. It's like the middle of nowhere kind of thing. And this family was getting ready to eat. So they had rice, and they had one fish for the whole family. And so it's actually kind of a sad story, but it's a funny story, like if you're Filipino. So they come in and they're like, oh, eat, and they're like, okay, so they start eating, and the kids are upstairs. And then, you know, when you eat the fish, you have to like flip it over. And so they flip it over, and then like the kids are like, oh, biniliktad na, or like they flipped over the fish, like it's half gone. And then so like the missionaries like heard the kids upstairs saying that, and they're like, oh, like we'd shake half their food, you know. So I mean, kind of a funny story. It's kind of sad in English, funny in Tagalog, but yeah, so I mean, that's kind of describes it. But other than that, holidays, they love Easter. Easter is a week long. It's they do parades. They have a day on like Friday, that Friday before nobody's like allowed to pretty much go outside and do sports and stuff. Or like if you're Catholic, they have a huge parade on Saturday, I think, or is it Friday as well? I forget which one, but huge parades where they have floats and they have like all the saints and stuff. Another thing about that whole week is just crazy, and it's great though. It's a good week. And then Christmas starts in September, so that's a good thing to know. It's called the Ber months, so like if it ends with Ber, so September through December is Christmas. So a third of the year is Christmas. So when you hear Ber months, it's not because it's cold, it's just because it ends with Ber. I didn't figure that out until I was like over halfway through my mission. Like, oh, the Ber months. I'm like, but it's not even cold. They're like, Elder, like it's Ber, like September, and like, got it. So yeah, so there's that. Christmas is way long. They love Christmas. I love Christmas. I now start Christmas in September, like, to be honest. Like, it's Christmas right now. So yeah, for holidays and events and stuff, they usually, like, especially birthdays, they eat pasta. So spaghetti and pancit is what it's called. So their spaghetti there is sweet, and they have hot dogs in it. So it's a little bit different than ours. And it's funny because I made normal, like not normal spaghetti, American spaghetti, I guess, for my companion and my housemates once. And they're like, this is trash. They're like, like it's so sour is what they said. They're like, it's sour because it tastes like tomatoes instead of sugar. So it's kind of funny. It's like Elf. That's how I imagine it. When he gets like the noodles and like pours syrup and stuff in it. But it's not that sweet. But yeah, so I mean, they'll always have like pasta, some kind of pasta during like holidays or birthdays, things like that. Also for the culture, they love karaoke. So everywhere, karaoke. So if you can't sleep because somebody's doing karaoke, get used to it. You're gonna hear it a lot. My favorite's when people are drunk and doing karaoke. That's the best. They have no shame. They're just like, they just go hard. Nobody like, and so karaoke's a great thing. In our mission in San Pablo, you're not supposed to sing karaoke. At least that was with my mission president. So I mean, they'll like, hey, do some karaoke, and you just like have to politely tell them no. But yeah, other than that, Philippines is great, especially the culture. I love the culture there, and the holidays. They just love the holidays, and they'll literally have a holiday like every month, at least once a month, because any excuse to party, it's valid. So. So I love Filipino food, to be honest. Like adobo, I still eat adobo. Like I make Filipino food at my house and stuff. It's like adobo, lumpia, which is like little meats or things wrapped in it'd be like rice paper and then like deep fried. Way good. It's awesome. So they have a whole bunch of good food. Rice will be with every meal. It's if you're not eating rice, it's not considered a meal. Is the way it works. It's just a snack. Like burgers and stuff, that's a snack. There's no rice. So also the burgers are different because like if you go to Angel's Burger, it's like unang kagat, tinapay lahat. So it's like it's all bread pretty much, and there's like a little bit of meat. It's kind of funny. So that's like they're saying like unang kagat, tinapay lahat, or like the first bite you take, it's just gonna be bread. So, but yeah. So I mean, the food's different. If you want to get like American food, it's all like Filipino American, right? Just like how in America we call Chinese food like Panda Express isn't Chinese food. It's not real Chinese food. It's like American Chinese food. It's the same thing there. So like if you go out to get American food, it's gonna be like Filipino American kind of thing. It's like with burgers, with spaghetti, things like that, and pizza, same stuff. But the food there is just, I think it's great. I love it. Depending on where you are, it's going to differ though, because in pretty much every different culture in the Philippines, they have like a different kind of adobo. So they're like, oh, this is adobo, and then one day you'll eat it and it'll be like kind of salty, and the next day you'll eat adobo and it'll be sweet, because those two different families will be from two different parts of the Philippines, right? And then some people use a lot more like spices in there. So not spices, like spicy stuff. Like sili is what it's called. They're like miniature chili peppers, like this big. And if you just eat it, it'll just scorch you and kill you. But other than that, those are kind of like the basic foods you'll eat. One of my favorite dishes is called laing, which is laing. It's how do you say in English? It's like leaves from a plant called gabi, and it's like the leaves, and it's like pretty bitter, and then they put milk in it, and they can put fish in it and things like that, and they kind of like mix it together and like roast it. It's really good. It all goes with rice, so you'd eat it with rice. But that's one of my favorites. That, and then sinigang. That's awesome. At first, when I first had sinigang, I was like, what is this? Because it's like sour, like it's sour soup. Like the sabaw or the soup is like really sour. So first you're like, what? But it's really good. I love it. And then one of the things that everybody always talks about is balut. So balut, right? It's the duck egg that has been fertilized, and they wait like 17 days, and then they boil it. So it's like partially developed. And at first, I had it on my first day in the Philippines, and not a smart idea. But like I ate it, and I was just like, whoa, like that was crazy. And I think I just wasn't adjusted yet, so I was like, I got pretty sick. But, yeah. So, I love Filipino food, to be honest. Like, adobo, I still eat adobo. Like, I make Filipino food at my house and stuff. It's like adobo, lumpia, which is like little meats or things wrapped in, it'd be like rice paper and then like deep fried. Way good. It's awesome. So they have a whole bunch of good food. Rice will be with every meal. If you're not eating rice, it's not considered a meal, is the way it works. It's just a snack. Like burgers and stuff, that's a snack. There's no rice. So also the burgers are different because like if you go to Angel's Burger, it's like unang kagat, tinapay lahat. So it's like it's all bread pretty much, and there's like a little bit of meat. It's kind of funny. So that's like they're saying like unang kagat, tinapay lahat, or like the first bite you take, it's just gonna be bread. So, but yeah. So I mean, the food's different. If you want to get like American food, it's all like Filipino American, right? Just like how in America we call Chinese food like Panda Express isn't Chinese food. It's not real Chinese food. It's like American Chinese food. It's the same thing there. So like if you go out to get American food, it's going to be like Filipino American kind of thing. It's like with burgers, with spaghetti, things like that, and pizza, same stuff. But the food there is just, I think it's great. I love it. Depending on where you are, it's going to differ though, because in pretty much every different culture in the Philippines, they have like a different kind of adobo. So they're like, oh, this is adobo, and then one day you'll eat it and it'll be like kind of salty, and the next day you'll eat adobo and it'll be sweet, because those two different families will be from two different parts of the Philippines, right? And then some people use a lot more like spices in there. So not spices, like spicy stuff. Like sili is what it's called. They're like miniature chili peppers, like this big. And if you just eat it, it'll just scorch you and kill you. But other than that, those are kind of like the basic foods you'll eat. One of my favorite dishes is called laing, which is how do Laing. It's how do you say in English? It's like leaves from a plant called gabi, and it's like the leaves, and it's like pretty bitter, and then they put milk in it, and they can put fish in it and things like that, and they kind of like mix it together and like roast it. It's really good. It all goes with rice, so you'd eat it with rice. That's one of my favorites. That, and then sinigang. That's awesome. At first, when I first had sinigang, I was like, what is this? Because it's like sour, like it's sour soup. Like the sabaw or the soup is like really sour. So first you're like, what? But it's really good. I love it. And then one of the things that everybody always talks about is balut. So balut, right? It's the duck egg that has been fertilized, and they wait like 17 days and then they boil it. So it's like partially developed. And at first, I had it on my first day in the Philippines, and not a smart idea. But like I ate it and I was just like, whoa, like that was crazy. And I think I just wasn't adjusted yet, so I was like, I got pretty sick. But about halfway through my mission, because I wouldn't eat it until then, until about halfway through, and then one of my companions who really loved it, and he'd always try to get me to eat balut. And I'm like, bro, I'm not going to eat any balut. And so finally, one day I just ate it again, and I like it now. I think it's good. It's great. But if you're going to eat balut, you need to put salt in it, and you need to put vinegar in it, because that's how you make it taste like great. Yeah. So yeah. So balut, crazy. A lot of people are like, that's gross. I think it's pretty good. So. Other than that, crazy foods. I had bayawak, which is like a giant monitor lizard. So, I mean, I think it's actually, they're not supposed to eat those. Like, you can't, like, I think it's like illegal or something. I'm not sure. Don't take my word for it, but one of the members fed me that. I've had snake. I had one of the things that people will, like, different from like America and the Philippines is they eat a lot of like the intestines, kidneys, like other parts like that. And so, like even walking down the street, they'll like be selling like chicken intestines and stuff. I don't know, they're not bad. They weren't my favorite, livers and things like that. Yeah. So I mean, gotta try it, you know. Other than that, I don't know. Snake, had snake. Chicken head, that's, I don't know. For me, that I just couldn't do it. Just like seeing the chicken staring at me, I was like, I can't eat you, because it was literally just the head. So yeah, so those are kind of some things that Americans would probably find different, as well as like a dish called diniguan, which is like blood, so like pig blood. So I mean, yeah, that's not bad either. Like at first, I didn't really like it. But then when I went to Marinduque, we used to have lechons, which we'd get a pig, like a whole pig, and then we'd roast it, or we'd actually like hire one of the members to roast it over a fire for like 8 hours. So we'd just have this big pig and have his own pea day, and it was great. And then one of our members would make the niguan out of its laman, so all of its laman loob. It's like all of its like intestines and stuff, which was actually pretty good. So I actually liked the way he did it. It just kind of depends on where you get it from, if it's just like the soup, or if it has like stuff in it too. So I like the one with stuff in it, but other people didn't. So I don't know. Guess it's preference, but don't hate something until you try it. So when it came to language for me, it was just like, I don't know, because like memorizing phrases and stuff didn't really help for me, like me at all. I kind of want to learn like the basics. So like the basic grammar structure and how to use it, but literally the key, because so many people are like, how do I learn the language? And I had people ask me when I was fairly new or like older in the mission, how'd you learn the language quickly and things like this? And I was just like, well, it's simple. If you want to learn the language, you speak the language, right? That's pretty much the best advice you can get. Like, you just have to go out and speak the language. If you don't speak the language, you won't learn it. And speaking it doesn't just mean like only saying things you know. It's trying to like hear what they say and try to repeat it back, if that makes sense. So you hear the way somebody says something and you try to understand why they said it like that. And then go home, study it if you don't get it, and then you go back and you try to use that phrase. You try to use the way that they said it the next day. Because in the Philippines, so in my very last area, I had a month and a half left on my mission when I went to Mindoro, my very last area. And every time I went to a different area, they had a different tone they'd use, because it's crazy. It's like in the Philippines, there's like 100 different dialects. So all these people come from different areas, so almost every single different area you'll go to, they'll be using different words. or they'll like say the word in a different way. So you have to go and you have to find out what it means. And don't be afraid to ask people what it means, because in the Philippines, they love, like, if you're trying to understand their language, they'll do their best to explain it to you. And a lot of them are pretty good at English, so they can tell you in English as well. So ask them what it means, really try to understand why they're saying it the way they're saying it, and then like what it actually means and what they're intending to say, what they want you to understand. And then you have to talk to a lot of people. You can't, like, street contacting is the way I learned to speak Tagalog, to be honest. Because the teaching and stuff you learn in the MTC, like the basic words for teaching, and you'll refine that when you teach people. But if you want to learn how to converse with people, things like that, you should have to talk to everybody. If you're quiet, you'll never learn it. So those are probably the best things I did. And then other than that, just really take language study seriously. My trainer was just a language study fanatic. He would not let me like get off it, and it kind of ticked me off because like this is what we did. So at first we started off with like lesson 1, and he's like, "Okay, teach the first principle of lesson 1 in 1 minute and 30 seconds to me in Tagalog." This is like day 1 of me being in the field, and I was like, oh, I can't do that. So I tried, and then by like the next day he was like, "Okay, now you have 1 minute to do it." And I was like, "What?" And it was like 30 seconds, and he's like, "Okay, tell it to me in 10 seconds. Like, how would you basically describe it?" And so also it's simplifying your teaching and simplifying the way you should be saying stuff. Because the way they teach it to you in the MTC is really formal. It's really, and it's also like indirect, if that makes sense. It's not as direct as it could be. So you should have to learn the way that they talk and kind of adjust to that. And then really take language study seriously, things like that. Then just like basic words. Ask your trainer to like make a list of basic words for you. Basic conversational words, like the word makano. Like, that's how much. So I've been in I was like in the Philippines, and I had no idea how to ask how much something was. So I mean, I'd basically starved to death. So it took me like a week to figure out how much that, like, how to say how much. So I mean, it's like makano, then like paano, and then like basic like sentences. Because I was like contacting a guy one time on the back of a tricycle. So it's like a motorcycle that they hook up like a cab to, and then like a little side thing. That's how you get around. Super cool. But no, I was just like, and he just asked me, "Saan ka galing?" or like, "Where are you coming from?" Like, what was I doing before that? And I had no idea what he's saying. It's like the most basic thing, right? So like, "Saan ka galing?" "Saan ka pupunta?" Like, where are you going? Where are you coming from? How old are you? Ilang taon ka na? Stuff like that. Just like really basic things. And if you know all of like the basic stuff, like the basic questions, you can carry on a conversation even if you have no idea what they're saying. They're just like, "Oh, cool, like, sige," like, "all right." And then you can ask them another question, right, until you finally get to teaching about the gospel a little bit and asking them if you come over. But yeah. Fun places, things to see. So there's a lot of nature, like I said. In Marinduque, like when it comes to nature, Marinduque and Mindoro have like not the best nature, but the like most beautiful places from what I've been. On Marinduque, there's a white sand beach. There's a lot of resorts, places that people can go. Scuba diving, things like that. There's the heart of the Philippines is actually in Marinduque, and they call it the heart of the Philippines because it's actually the geographical center of the Philippines. And so it's at the very top of a mountain, which is really cool. So you can go hike the mountain and see the whole island and see a long ways away, which is really cool. There's also a lot of caves in Marinduque, in Mindoro. Also on the mainland, there's caves, and also waterfalls. There's a lot of waterfalls. In Lucena, I don't even know how many waterfalls there are, but there's a lot in Lucena as well. And for other things to see in San Pablo, there's like a cultural center that's kind of for tourists, where you go, let's say it's probably like 15 minutes south of San Pablo, where it's like this little place you can go, and they have cultural exhibits, and you get to ride around on a carabao, which is the like water buffalo looking thing. It's pretty cool. And they have people who go and like do traditional dances, and you get to eat lunch in a waterfall. So like there's a big waterfall, and then you just like have tables, and you're like eating in the water pretty much. It's pretty cool. So that's always like been a big one. That's something my president took his whole family to. Every time they'd come out, he'd go there. There's so much, I don't know, there's just so many waterfalls and pretty places to go. There's The ocean, of course, the ocean. There's a white sand beach in Marinduque, and there's also one in, what's that? In Batangas, is where it's called. So it's actually kind of like, not really, but kind of. It's like in between Lucena and Batangas. But yeah, so those are kind of things to do. Other than that, there's a place called the UP, the University of the Philippines, over in Cabuyao zone. So it's over in Santa Rosa, by Santa Rosa. It's actually in Calamba, I think. The city's called Calamba. And over there they have like the natural history kind of museum. Like it's like a giant botanical garden. And there's like butterflies and plants and things that are really unique to that place. And it's actually like really popular in Asia. They also have the Mall of Asia, which isn't in San Pablo, but it's in Manila. But yeah, so I mean, there's so many things to do. Most things revolving around nature and then culture. And then there's also a lot of like touristy things you can do. There's also a place on Mindoro called Porto Galera, which is supposed to be like a really pretty port. We weren't allowed to go there because there was a lot of like tourists, and I guess there's like a section you really shouldn't be going into. So, but ask the locals and they'll know about that. Honestly, the mission was the best thing I've ever done. The best decision I've ever made. I don't regret it at all. I've been home for 5 months now, and I think about it every day. All the experiences I had, all of the friends I made, and it's really close to my heart, and it always will be. Really, if you want to be a successful missionary, because you're probably thinking to yourself right now, what am I going to do? What do I need to do to get ready? I'm probably leaving in like a month or two. I had 2 months to get ready for mine. It's really simple. It's kind of funny how overcomplicated people make it, but it's simple. Get up every morning on time. Be obedient, read your scriptures, and do not forget to use the atonement in your life. Because like I said earlier, the atonement is why I decided to go on a mission, and the atonement is what got me through the mission, and the atonement is the most important part of the mission. For yourself, when you're living it, and when you go out to teach it to everybody else. Because that is what they're coming to. They're not coming to get baptized to become a member of the church. You're supposed to be going out there and teaching them how to use the atonement in their lives. And if you truly understand the atonement, you will try to deliver the message of the atonement to every single person you meet. Every single person. If you read Preach My Gospel chapter, page 5, it says that the more your understanding of the atonement grows, the greater your desire is to share it. So right now, and throughout your mission, ask yourself, how great is your desire to share it? If it's not as great as it should be, or if it could be better, you need to increase your understanding of the atonement. You need to use it more. And you need to become more diligent and more obedient to all of the rules that our Father in heaven has set for us. So it's all up to you. You got to go out, you got to do it, you got to live it, and you got to love it. And if you do those things, you'll come back and you'll, after your 2 years, which seems like a really long time, but it goes by in a blink, so fast, you'll have loved every moment of your mission. Me, I didn't regret anything I did on my mission because I know I did everything right. And you will too if you do these things. Stories. So one of my first, not like first cool story, but like one of the really cool things that happened to me, this was actually really weird. It wasn't weird. It was just really interesting. It was actually in my first area. We talked to this guy walking down the street. And I can't remember what his name was, but he was an older guy. And this is kind of a story, I guess, about how, a spiritual story, I guess, about how angels will literally guide you. And we talked to this guy, and he told us that we need to go check out this house. He's like, "Okay, I'm not going to be there right now. I'm on my way into my studio, my art studio." He says he does paintings, things like that. And so we talked to this man, and he's like, "Okay, come by Friday at this time." We're like, "Okay, cool." And so we're like, "That's great." And he was like really excited and stuff. And so that was like a Tuesday, I think. And we left and continued on our day and went back to that house he told us to on Friday. And when we got to that house, we asked if that guy was there. And they're like, what? And we're like, is this guy here? And it was actually the next door neighbor, because we knocked on the house and nobody answered. And they're like, no, but his son is. Like, his son lives there, but his son went to the what's that called in English? To the cemetery, right? So went to the cemetery. And so we're like, okay, do you know when he's going back? Well, probably later, because today is the anniversary of one of the deaths of one of his family members. And we're like, okay, cool. So we came back we came back a couple times the next week, and he wasn't there. So the next week after that, we came back, and we got a hold of him. We saw it was the son. It was like a younger guy. And we're like, is your dad here? Like, we like talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he told us to come here. And he was all confused, and he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, he told us to come here and to talk to you about the gospel, or like to teach him. And he's like, well, my dad's not here. I'm like, well, can we teach you? And he's like, maybe on a different day. So we came back. So we came back again, and we asked if we can teach his dad. And he's like, listen, my dad's dead. And we're like, what? And he's like, yeah, I wasn't here 2 weeks ago because I was it was the year anniversary of his death. And we're like, okay, is this your dad's name? And he's like, yeah. And we're like, is he an art? Like, does he do art at a studio? And he's like, yeah. And we're like, how? Then we're here, okay, so if he's not here and he's dead, then who did we talk to in the street? And he's like, I don't know, but it can't be my dad. I'm like, okay, has the same name, went to the same job, at the same place, and told us to come to your house. So we're like, sir, this isn't a coincidence. Like, we are here to teach you. Like, this is like a divine thing. And it was so spiritual and so cool, because I think that was probably the most direct experience I had with angels literally leading me. And this was a total coincidence, which I don't think it was. But what was interesting was, even though that happened, the guy still said no. So he's like, and it was really interesting because you like feel the Spirit, like we all felt the Spirit, and you could tell he was feeling the Spirit. And he sat there for maybe 5 minutes, and we asked him again, and he sat there and didn't answer. And then he was like, no, it'd be better if you didn't come back. And so what's so interesting is you may have experiences like that, but it's still up to the agency of the person, right? And maybe he accepted some missionaries later on. Maybe he's still going to, or maybe it was preparation to eventually accept the missionaries or the gospel. But that was probably the most direct relation I guess I had with that. And then you'll be led through this from the Spirit, by the Spirit, throughout your whole mission, you know, with things you're supposed to do, places you're supposed to go. If you listen to the Spirit, you'll have success, right? So I mean, there's so many spiritual experiences. Maybe one of the hardest lessons I had was, this is kind of funny, I was praying for patience. Worst idea ever. Never do it. Yeah, you're just like, no, like, praying for Christ-like attributes is probably not a good idea. Like, it's a good idea. But, like, you get some great experiences from it. So, one of the best ones, I was on Marinduque, so the small island, and we were the only missionaries to have bikes left in the whole mission. And our because the missionaries before us, he like split his head open and stuff. Love the kid, he's great. And if you heard me say that, you'd be like, no, I didn't, but he did. He spent more time hugging the ground than he did on his bike. So, so President started getting like, he's like, hey, if the bikes break, don't fix them. Bikes are done. But in this area, we'd have like a 21-kilometer walk if it wasn't like there and back, if it wasn't for the bikes. And at past 6 o'clock, everybody was in bed. Nobody was outside doing their stuff. So none of the tricycles would be going, so we're like, we couldn't get to this area and back. So we had bikes. But it was up in the mountains, so it was like really hilly and stuff. So we started off, me and my companion and I, and like I said, I was praying for patience at the time so I could become more patient with the situation, with other people, with myself, with my companion, things like that. And we start off, and I didn't know this at the time, but my back tire, like the brake, was pretty much on my wheel. So I didn't know this. And it's been like that for like a week. And it was so hard to pedal, and I just like, my legs are so tired. I didn't sleep well the night before. I was just getting over like being sick and stuff. And so we start going, and we're going way up into the mountains, and there's just this huge wind coming from the opposite direction. Like we're like crawling like on our bikes. It's so slow. And so start going like that, and I just bought a new umbrella that day too because it was supposed to rain. And I never got an umbrella, so I got an umbrella. And so I'm going, I have the umbrella with me, and it starts to rain a little bit, so I take it out, and I'm like using it. So the huge wind's coming that's like acting like a parachute and pulling me back, and I'm trying to keep the rain off. So finally get going, the rain stops, I close it. I'm covered in sweat, like absolutely drenched and in water. And so we keep going, and we start going up this hill, and we came down the other side, and somehow my umbrella got caught in my wheel well of my tire. So it gets pulled out of my hand and shredded into pieces. So my brand new umbrella is gone. And I was like, okay. I was like, it's all good. Like, we still got people to go teach. So we kept going, and then it starts to rain again. And so now I'm just covered, and I'm just completely drenched, and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So you still have like 7 hours left of the day, you know. And so we go up to teach our first appointments, and we get punted. So nobody, even the people we were talking to on the street, members, investigators, anybody, was pretty much like, no, like we don't have time, from 2 o'clock in the morning to like 8 o'clock at night. And so probably about at 7 or 6, it was probably about at 6, we were leaving one of the appointments and riding our bikes, and I went through this puddle. And you know, the carabao I mentioned before, well, they're big animals. They have really big poops. And so I pooped in this puddle, and I didn't see it. And I rode through it, and it just sprayed water and carabao poop all over me. So I'm covered in water, poop, completely drenched, so tired. My umbrella's broken, and everybody's punting us. We go to another member's house, like try to teach them, and because they had somebody else there. And they were just like, oh, well, you smell really bad. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You should probably go home. And I was like, no, I'm being patient. I have to be a diligent elder. Like, I can't go home yet. And so I was like, just one more after this. And so we went and taught another person, and we actually got a lesson at the very end. And so then we're like, okay, it's time to go home. So then we had to start our 10-kilometer bike ride back. And so we start riding, and we get maybe about a kilometer outside of that little village that we just went to, and my back tire pops. So here I am. It's like 9:30 at night. It's supposed to be like, we're supposed to be getting home. It was probably like 9:20 when it popped, so we would have gotten home on time. And we're like 10 kilometers outside of where our house is. I'm covered in poop, completely soaked. Just broke my new umbrella. My bike's broken. And then we had to walk from there all the way home. And we didn't get home till like 11 o'clock. So it was great because we also had to like drag our bikes. But it was funny because like at first, like throughout the day, I was like, this sucks. I was like, this is okay. Like it's kind of what it's supposed to be going, but like this kind of sucks. And it's funny though, because when that happened, when my bike broke and I got off my bike and just started walking it, I just like started laughing. I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like this is, it became funny to me, I guess, because I'm like, I felt like I kind of heard the voice like, well, you prayed for patience, so here you go, you know? And it was just kind of a funny experience, because by the time I got home, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I had to take a shower. I'm covered in stuff. And it was just really interesting because you'll have experiences like that, right? And whether you think they're bad or good is like all up to your point of view, you know? But if you just remember that everything that's happening is for your own good, then things like that just become funny. So instead of getting mad, you laugh. And instead of getting upset, you just have a cool story to tell. So yeah, so that was kind of like not the most, but that was one of like the ridiculous things that happened to me. I was just like, what's happening? So those are probably two of my favorite stories, but.
Awesome.
And then Christmas starts in September. So that's a good thing to know. It's called the Burr months. So like if it ends with Burr, so September through December is Christmas. So a third of the year is Christmas. So when you hear Burr month, it's not because it's cold, it's just because it ends with Burr. I didn't figure that out until I was like over halfway through my mission. Like, oh, the Burr months. I'm like, but it's not even cold. They're like, elder, like it's Burr, like September, and like, got it. So yeah, so there's that. Christmas is way long. They love Christmas. I love Christmas. I now start Christmas in September, like, to be honest. Like, it's Christmas right now. So, yeah, for holidays and events and stuff, they usually, like, especially birthdays, they eat pasta. So, spaghetti and pancit is what it's called. So, their spaghetti there is sweet, and they have hot dogs in it. So it's a little bit different than ours. And it's funny because I made normal, like not normal spaghetti, American spaghetti, I guess, for my companion and my housemates once. And they're like, this is trash. They're like it's so sour is what they said. They're like, it's sour because it tastes like tomatoes instead of sugar. So it's kind of funny. It's like Elf. That's how I imagine it. When he gets like the noodles and like pours syrup and stuff in it. But it's not that sweet. But yeah, so I mean, they'll always have like pasta, some kind of pasta during like holidays or birthdays, things like that. I don't know, because I feel like when you're on the mission, almost every day is like the same. Like holidays, everything just feels like the same, you know? Of course, like certain days have more importance and things like that, or the activities and things that you're doing. But yeah, so even on Christmas, it was probably a lot harder for other missionaries than it was for me. Like some missionaries were really sad about it, and excuse me, they're really sad and really miss their families. Like, of course, I missed my family and things like that, but I also knew there's going to be more Christmases, you know, like two Christmases out of 100 Christmases that I'm going to have in my life. You know, it's not that bad. And it was actually really cool because every Christmas I was in the Philippines for, like, a miracle happened, I guess. My first one was actually one of my recent converts, and then one of the people we were investigating, he's now baptized, showed up to our house and gave us food and things like that. Because the curfew was at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, so we couldn't, because people get crazy on Christmas, you know. So, I mean, you couldn't go out often, so you had to be at home by that time. And so me and my roommates or my housemates were all obedient to that, and we were home. And so it was just the four of us, and it was fun. It was fun being the four of us, and we kind of made like a special little supper and things like that. And did we give gifts? I think we gave a couple gifts to each other. You know, it wasn't anything big, but it was just sweet though, because I feel like so often when we think of Christmas, it's, oh, I'm missing my family, which is right. And then people are like, oh, but I'm also missing like the presents and opening presents under the Christmas tree, and I'm missing going sledding and all these things. But I feel like oftentimes when missionaries feel like they're missing out on Christmas, they're not thinking about what they're gaining. And it's really focused on Christ. It should be, especially when you're in your mission. So if you're thinking about everything you're missing, you're not thinking about Him. And so I think those two Christmases really meant a lot to me because it was pure, I guess. There was none of like the frill and things like that of Christmas. It was just focusing on Jesus Christ, focusing on what He did for us. And so yeah, of course I miss my family, and I'm excited for this Christmas since it'll be my first Christmas since I've been home, and so I can see everybody and stuff. But those two Christmases were really special to me, and miracles happened, to be honest, on all of them.